Hi, welcome to our video on Cisco's physical security solution. This video is designed to give you a taster of our solution, and the idea is that we have a physical security deployment set up within our labs in Cisco's proof of concept labs. So CPOC is a proven service which essentially accelerates the sales cycle and improves customer confidence. We aim to inspire customer confidence through our world-class testing facilities and through validation of services.
So today we're going to run through a few tests with you that demonstrate the physical solution PBST, our pre-built static test as a whole, to show you the features that we provide within our lab demonstration. At the end of this presentation we're going to have a few links for you where you can learn more about our PBST, get the full test plan and learn out how to book a CPOC.
So I'm Aaron, a system engineer at Cisco.
And my name's Neil Stevens. I'm also a systems engineer at Cisco.
So we have a set agenda here today, and we'll guide you through each of these features, and then we can show you how they work individually. So first of all, we'd like to describe the network itself, test whether the network is ready to support video. We'll do that using our LiveAction tool, and this will be our first test. Our second test is to then actually delve into the depths of Video Surveillance Operations Manager, VSOM, where we will then assign a template and then add a camera to that template and show you how that works quite easily. We'll then talk about how to auto provision a camera, essentially how to plug and play a camera and you're ready to go to view the feed.
Yep, so once we've got the camera up and running, what we'll look to do is enable motion detection and recording on motion detection, and how we can export that recording for compliance or evidential purposes as well. To do that export and recording, what we'll do is we'll use our safety and security desktop application. We can also view the video on a wall or push it to a screen, and we're going to walk you through that in just a bit.
Okay, so with our first test in terms of network validation using LiveAction, we're going to talk about how actually we can assess our network to see whether it's ready to support video. So Cisco has actually designed a toolkit to make sure that people using our networks who run maybe Cisco applications or non-Cisco applications can feasibly impact network operations. So as opposed with video right now, we have several problems. We have the issue of latency, we have the issue of jitter, we have the issue of frame loss over the network. We need to make sure that we address these issues. So in that sense, Cisco created the toolkit of MediaNet. This is how MediaNet was born. So with MediaNet, it essentially optimizes video throughout the network. With the toolkit that I'm about to show you, LiveAction, and with MediaNet integrated into it, we can actually optimize the network for video across the network as such. So MediaNet is enabled on all Cisco switches and routers, so that's very important to note that we can have that capability in our Cisco network. Also, in fact, so Cisco own about 13 global patents covering MediaNet and MediaTrace. I mean, these are registered at the US Global Patent Office, so it shows that we have significant research and drive behind this video optimization technology. So this test itself will involve assessing the network readiness to support the video services and video quality services, and I'll explain how the network looks currently without any congestion. I'll then make a problem in the network to destroy the video quality, and I'll show you how I do that in the upcoming demonstration. And then I'll show you how to identify that problem and then remediate that problem using the Cisco toolkit. Okay, so I have my remote desktop connection into the LiveAction client on the which we're virtualizing in our network deployment. Now this is the client itself. Now what it's showing right now is our deployment of the physical security within our network in CPOC. We have these two routers here, as you can see. We have our cameras connected into it, and also our VSOM application and media server application here, those two servers there. So if I currently just show you the flow of traffic between those cameras into the media server, by going here we show the type of traffic. We have one already set up that shows all traffic from all of the cameras into the media server, which is this one here. Let's let it refresh. Okay, so what this is showing is essentially all of the traffic going from our cameras into this media server in this location right here. Now this is showing the flow as such for now. Now if I want to focus on one camera and see the MediaNet traffic through that, I'll go to table, I'll go to select a camera, let's say this one, show MediaNet flow path analysis, click on that one, This gathers statistics using NetFlow and gives relevant information and up-to-date information here. And as you can see, that camera from this source is going to the media server at this destination with these details here. We can see that there's no packet loss right now as the flow is going through each of the routers. And we can see that there's no policy applied. There's no sort of congestion involved here. If I click on Show Path, go back to this picture here, you can see the flow of MediaNet traffic going through the router, going through this router, and down to the media server. So from what we can see here, we can see that there is fine video feed going through the network. Let me jump to the feed, the live feed, and you can show you exactly how that looks right now. So this is the view of that camera in our CPOC labs right now. As you can see, the quality is fine. That's very, very good quality there. So what we're going to do now is actually emulate congestion in the network, and then we'll show you the feed afterwards, and you'll see the difference. I'll go back here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is apply a policy to this interface gigabit Ethernet 0/2. Yeah. Double click on that. Right click, apply a policy that we've already made. And what this does is limit the bandwidth over that link to 1 meg. And I mean, in general, it's about 5 to 6 meg of traffic going through that camera to the media server. So essentially, this should degrade the quality of the feed. Apply that. If we go back here, we can now see an alert has been generated. Great, media loss event has occurred. Let's close that. Give it a few minutes to update. As you can see in the background already, you can see there's a bit of degradation in quality there. But what I want to show you is, in fact, if I go here, let's go to the camera we have the view for. You can see the flow of traffic going through that. That's fine, that's just general traffic. You can now see on one of the routers it's turned orange. Now what this shows is that there's congestion within that device, within our network. So now we can actually see, okay, within that device there's a problem there. We can go straight to that router and say, okay, what's the problem? Let's troubleshoot from here. If I show in terms of the MediaNet view, I go to table, here, show MediaNet flow path, refresh. As you can see now, this red stuff here signifies that there's a problem essentially. As you can see, there is packet loss within the router that we've applied the interface to, which makes sense. There's a loss event count. There's a policy applied, the camera 4500, makes sense. If I do the show path, you can now see using this visual representation, using this tool, that okay, the flow of traffic is fine up until that router. After the router, there's a problem. This gives essentially the network administrator, the network engineer, the sign to go and troubleshoot that router there. So that's the value of this tool, and I'm sure you can see in the background, look at it. Look at the video quality from before and look at now with that policy applied. It's completely changed. So in this sense, it's a very, very good tool in understanding where the problem lies. Is it in the network? Is it in the camera? I mean, essentially, if there's a problem, who owns the responsibility when a camera goes down? Is it the IT team? Is it the operations team? Is the camera the problem or the network the problem? With this tool, we can see exactly that, look, the router is a problem, and we can identify that. And that's exactly what we're trying to show here. So with a Cisco network and with this tool, we have full visibility across the deployment, and this gives us much more flexibility in that sense.
Okay, so now we're going to run through how to create a template within vSOM and add a camera to the system. So first we bring up our Operations Manager console and we log in. So now we're in, we click on cameras and we go into templates and click on add. So this is going to add a new template. So the template is going to be for our 6000p series of cameras. It's going to be specific to that model. So put 6000p in there. And we're going to associate it with a system, which is going to be our CPOC London system. So that could be, you could have this split up into different branches, for example. And now, as I mentioned before, it's going to be a 6000p series camera this template is going to work with. So it's model specific, and we're going to pick the model out here. As you can see, we've got many types of cameras the system supports, but here we're only interested in our 6000p camera. Okay, now in terms of streaming and recording, so we're going to change the video standard over to PAL format. Let's click yes to that. So now we've got a choice of video quality. So as you can see here, low quality, it's going to be frame rate 5 frames per second, and you can see the bit rate here and the resolution. So because we're a lab environment, we're going to show you how to create your own custom settings here. So we're going to use H.264, and we're going to be using unicast method of transportation in our network. So we've got the choice here between variable bit rate and constant bit rate. So we're going to do CBR here, and for the resolution we're going to go for 1080p, and we're going to have the highest frame rate possible, and we're also going to set a bit rate of 2000. So now we've done that, we set our video quality up. So now we've got some recording options here available to us. So we can do no recording, as you can see. We can do record on motion. We can do continuous recording, and we can do record on motion with continuous recording. Sounds a bit confusing when you look at the first two items, but what this will do is actually retain those events, those motion events, separately for a different period of time versus the continuous recording. So here we're going to do record on motion with events, and we're going to generate alerts on our console when we get a motion triggered event. So we've only got a limited amount of storage on our test system, so we're only going to record the events for 7 days. Okay, so now we've set our retention period up here. We can also do advanced storage options, so we can have primary redundant system set up here, or we can have all streams to all servers. These are our media servers that are actually recording the streams. So in this instance we're not using any failover setup, so we'll just leave that as off. Also, because this is a lab environment with limited storage capacity, we're not going to check if the available storage space is available to start recording. So now we set up our template, we click on create. So now our template's set up, we're ready to add a camera. So how we do that, if we click on cameras here, as you can see we've already got some set up, and we click on add. Now this is going to be the IP address of our camera, and our lab, this is going to be 10.52.246.71, and a username for our camera, and our password, and the name for our camera, because this is going to go into row H and I in our lab, we'll just call that row H and I. And now our install location, so these could be site specific to your organization. This is our CPOC organization. We've only got one media server set up within our operations manager, which is going to do the recording. Now we've got the choice of camera type. This is a 6000p series camera. Now it wants us to select the template. So the one we just created is the 6000p, so we're going to pick that one. I'm going to click on add. It's just going to take a few seconds while that whirs away and it adds the... Okay, it just takes a few seconds to finish off adding the camera, and now it's all set up and added. So if we want to check on our video feed, we click on monitor. We can see our row H and I camera, and the video is coming through crystal clear. Okay, so as you probably noticed, we've still got a little red X that's come up on our camera. That doesn't mean that everything's not up and working. It's just a simple configuration change that we need to do. We're going to do in our later step where we set up motion recording. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to auto provision a camera using Auto Smart Ports ASP and how this works. So I'm just going to fire up Telnet to connect to our switch. Okay, so now we're logged in. So Auto Smart Port enables us to create a macro that can auto provision the camera when it sees that an IP camera has been connected to the switch, and it does this using CDP. So we've already got auto smart ports set up, so what I'd like to do is just show you one of the smart ports that we got set up at the moment. Okay, so this is a macro we created earlier in our environment to set up our cameras automatically as they're plugged into the device. As I said before, it recognises that a camera has been connected using CDP, and it will automatically provision all of this information on the port of which that camera is attached to. So this enables us to rapidly provision cameras by not having to go and manually configure all of these ports with all of this information, such as spanning tree, port security. We can also do our quality of service settings here as well. So as you probably noticed, we've got a little $ next to the VLAN. So this is actually taken from a variable which we specified earlier in configuring the Mac. So if we take a look at one of the interfaces that's been automatically provisioned by the smart port, so for example 27 to one of our IP cameras, we can see that policy that we just showed you before has been auto-populated onto that camera, and it's acquired all of the settings from the macro onto the camera, and it's done that just by plugging in that IP camera to the port, and it's provisioned it using that macro policy, which you can see here is Civ's IP camera. So this is just a brief overview for the full demonstration on how to configure smart ports. Please come to view our PBSD. Thank you.
Okay, so we first talked about the network validation stage using our LiveAction tool. We've assessed if the network is ready to support video surveillance. We've then talked about actually how to apply a template and then add a camera to that template, and then that goes into VSOM itself. That kind of gives us a custom scenario, a custom build on our camera. We've then talked a little bit about how to actually provision a camera using macros, using auto smart ports, and that kind of thing, making sure it's easy and ready to go. Now let's talk a bit about the motion detection stage, actually recording video and actually then exporting it too. So this test itself involves configuring a camera with an area to record a certain stage of that camera on motion detection, and then actually export that video to a file where, for example, we can give that to the police, part of nature of law. We can give that to the police and say, okay, here's the proof that we have in our network. So let me go to the VSOM web interface. Now, as you can see, this camera is the one we've added before, the row HNI here, and as Neil said previously, there's a red X on there so far. So ideally that should go away when we configure motion detection. So if I go into the top here in the toolbar, go to cameras at the top, click on that. So in the camera settings, go down here to row HNI, our camera, click on that, and that gives us the settings of our camera. If I go into this tab of image, this gives me the option to set motion detection. So first what I'll do is drag this green box that says include area onto the video feed. Now this is essentially a window of what's recorded in that video feed. So if I select that area there to record on motion, essentially that's if someone passes this area here, motion is detected. There's a couple of features here as well that I should kind of go over. So the sensitivity is actually the amount of change required in this image as a percentage in motion detection. So for example, if there's some kind of motion in there, a percentage change, then motion is triggered, then the actual capturing is triggered. In terms of detection threshold, this means that there's a certain level where motion is then triggered with an alarm too. So for example, let's set this detection threshold at about 20. So that means once the motion passes 20, that's when motion is essentially detected and an event is occurred, Oh, there's a bit of motion there if you manage to catch that. In the sensitivity side, let's put that to around 40. Now what this means is that the change in motion will be essentially 40% change, and that's when we'll signify motion detection. So if I save that, save motion configs, that will go to the camera and provision it that way too. So this takes a bit, actually takes a bit of time. So it's also worth mentioning while this is doing that is that obviously this depends on trial and error. This depends on you doing it yourself, understanding exactly the different ways to do it, exactly what detection threshold, what sensitivity is the best for your deployment. So in order to view this recording later, and as part of another test, we'll show you this safety security desktop application which can be used to view this recording and actually export to. Okay, so as you can see, the tick now on the side is now there because we've configured motion detection. Now actually, if I give Neil a shout, he'll actually walk by and hopefully give us a wave. Let's see if he comes up soon. So where are you, Neil? There he is. Okay, as you can see, the motion has been triggered. So now it's all green essentially. Give us a wave. Oh, okay, he's giving us a thumbs up. Good stuff. Okay, so as you can see, motion is configured. Fantastic. Okay, so now I want to show actually finding a clip and then exporting that clip to a file. So what I'll now do is go on to monitor video at the top in the corner here. Click on that and actually open up our row H&I, which now has that green tick as I've said before. I'll right click, go to select streams and clips, select the recorded option here, then say okay, let's go to select clip range, and we want to select the clip range where Neil is, and I know for a fact that Neil appeared at around this period, 3 minutes past 4. So he appeared around here. So if I select the clip range to be here for a minute or so, then right click and say create a CVA file. Gives us the options to do that. If I click OK, it gives me an option to save the file. So I'll say okay, test 1, or sorry, test 4, aren't we, for example. Save. Exports that clip. That takes a while, so let me just pause the video. Okay, so as I just finished up, good. So the CVA file is actually a tamper-proof file as opposed to the MP4 file, so that kind of makes things a bit more secure. So if I go and view that file on my desktop, you can see that file is now downloaded and stored locally on our desktop. If I open that up, we will see our recording play right now. Now, this is brilliant because we can actually give this recording back to anybody that'd like to see it afterwards. You can see it's very high quality as well. If I open that up, you can see it in full screen, and that's brilliant. So Neil, I know, should actually walk in at around 10 seconds. There he is. So as you can see, the recording is, give us a wave, boom boom, it's a recording, so there we go. Good stuff. And that's as simple as that to do. Brilliant.
So now on with our last test today, which is going to be the safety and security desktop application. Now this can be used by the security team to monitor video feeds through each of the installed cameras within the sites. So to show you how to get the application installed, if we go to our Video Surveillance Operations Manager and we log in there and we click on Operations, we can then click on here to download the application. Just got to accept the license and agreement, and the application will download and run. So we've already previously done this, so I click on the application here. This is the login screen. So this address will be the VSOM, Video Surveillance Operation Manager address, and the domain, and we'll just pop our usual credentials in there and just wait for that to load. Okay, so now that's loaded up. So if we click on London, we've got one location at the moment, which is CPOC London. We'll just load our streams from our cameras. So we can do multiple views within here. So for example, we could just have a 4x4 and we can drag our cameras on here. We can create these views so that when we load the application, they always load to these views by default. Okay, so this shows you a wall created, as you can see, someone moving around our lab here. So we can also view alerts, and these alerts will be generated they can be sorted via the status. So for example, here we've got motion. So on H&I, which Aaron was just talking you through on our motion recording window. So if we click on one of the alerts that's been generated here, it will populate the events below. So as you can see, we've got motion started here. So then we can go and review why that motion started, and we can see in the background there someone's passing through, and we can also view when the motion stopped as well. And we've got all the events for that camera listed here in this handy window, so the security staff can go through and just check them all off and make sure there wasn't any threats or issues there reported. So that covers Safety and Security Desktop Manager. For a more in-depth look, please come and view our pre-built static test at CPOC. Thank you.
So as you've seen here today, we've gone through each of these tests. You now understand the physical security PBST that we have in CPOC London. I'd also like to take this opportunity to show you the different branches we have worldwide. We have several locations around the world, and you can visit each of these sites as you please.
So if you'd like to get more information on CPOC, please visit the hyperlinks you see before you now, or talk to your account team about booking a CPOC visit today.
So I hope this has been informative for you. My name's Aaron Kerai.
And I'm Neil Stevens, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.